Okay, so we're going live. We're going very live, and we are definitely live. Hi, everyone, and welcome to live stream number 8384. Unfortunately, we had to reschedule one from yesterday. It will be coming up next week. I'm very excited to be with everyone today. As usual, welcome to the Data on Kubernetes community. You are always welcome here. And we have a lot of things going on, all right? So we have our co-located event for KubeCon coming up in October. We just closed the CFP yesterday. Thank you to everyone who sent in a CFP. Now we have to do the really fun part, which is debating about who's going to get in, who's not going to get in, or who can be used for a future session is what I would prefer to say. But once again, thanks to everybody who participated in that. We've also got a registration open for the co-located event. The schedule will be coming up very, very soon. The finalist speakers will be notified next week. We also have the DOK Students Day. The first time we're going to be doing this, an entire day dedicated to students or beginners, folks who are starting out with the Data on Kubernetes technology stack. We know this stuff's not easy, and so we want everyone to have as many resources in terms of talks, in terms of panels, in terms of mentoring. So we'll have some news coming up about that as well. We'll be talking about that in our Twitter Spaces tomorrow. And speaking of new stuff and special announcements, I have a very wonderful person with me today. His name is Sander, and he is the CEO of Redcubes and a very important person. He is very important, extremely important. And that word important is going to be very crucial today because he has an important announcement he's going to be making, but no spoilers. We'll get into that later. Sander, you are based in the Netherlands. That is correct. And where exactly? And can you just tell us a little bit about yourself? Welcome.
Exactly. Well, in the center of the Netherlands, in Utrecht. Utrecht.
Very good.
And about myself, well, I live here in Utrecht, just a couple of blocks away from the office. So that's very nice. I do come by the car every day, because I'm very lazy. And I live here in Utrecht together with my girlfriend and my 6-year-old daughter, who a couple of days went to the, what is it, third, fourth grade? I don't know how you call it in English, but...
oh, don't worry. It's okay. She's growing up and she's doing well. That's the most important thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good stuff. And can you just tell us a little bit about your technological background? How did you start out? Was it through studying? Was it through a friend? How did this whole journey begin?
Whoa, that's going to be a long story because I didn't went to school. Yeah, I dropped out on high school, I think. So I didn't went to college and university. That's something I did in later on in the evenings. I wouldn't recommend it because it's very hard. It took me like 8 years.
That is hard, but good for you for doing it. And it also shows that a degree isn't necessarily the only thing you can have to bring to the table.
No, I almost finished my master, but then I got a few topics to do my the final scription.
Like thesis, yeah.
Yeah, thesis, yeah. And then I thought, my God, I'm not going to spend my time on those stupid topics, so I'll skip. So I didn't finish it, my master.
It's all good.
Anyway.
But what were you doing your master's degree about? What about computer science or something different?
Yeah, I did. First, I started out with technical computer science with a lot of math, programming, and I soon experienced that wasn't really my thing. I don't have the math knob, Mm-hmm. I can do some programming, I can understand it, but don't ask me to build anything. Anyway, then I moved on to more on the IT and management level, and that was very learning. Yeah.
Okay.
But anyway, let's.
So since then, yeah.
Yeah, well, since then, I started with. So when I dropped out of high school, I went into the army.
Okay.
So I've been like a professional in the professional military for 6 years. Done a lot of stuff. Been in Bosnia in 1994.
Oh wow.
And then I got into the technology and technology part in the army. And then I thought, well, let's make a jump into the more normal civilization. And that was around 1998 or so. And since then, I've been working in IT for the first years for a couple of big companies, insurance companies. And later on, I think the last 12 years, I worked as a freelance IT consultant.
Okay.
And that also got bored. So I thought, let's do something else. And then I run into a smart guy, and I thought, hey, this is the chance, because he can do something I can't, and I can do something he can't. So we started Redcubes.
Okay, very good. So you found a smart guy. What is the thing that you can do that others can't?
What I can do what others can't? Whoa, that's a good question. I'm good at having the complete overview. Yeah, so don't ask me to fix like a specific issue, but I can very fast say, well, that issue is related to another issue or to something else. So in a much broader perspective.
Yep, that's good. What we say is, I wonder how you say this in Dutch, is don't lose the forest for the trees. You know, so having that sort of holistic global view. How do you
Yeah.
say that in Dutch? How do you say that in Dutch, by the way?
I
There
don't
must be
know.
an expression. There must be an expression. It doesn't matter. Focusing on the big picture, I guess, is the idea here.
Generalist.
Okay, that's good.
Generalist or whatever.
Yeah. But I think what it also goes to show is that because sometimes people have sort of an obsession of like, I have to be perfect in this or in that, when in reality, like you said, we need folks that have all different kinds of views, and in your case, having that global sort of view of keeping that going. So when did Redcubes get started?
We started in 2019, so it's
Okay.
almost 2.5 years ago. And since we started, I think the last couple of 2 years, the only thing we've been doing is building, and working with a couple of launching customers to gain a lot of experience from their side to improve their product. And I think we're now almost at a point where we can say, oh, now we're serious. Well, we're convinced that if we drop this outside into the world, that it's going to make a chance. Because, and I'll get into the details, it's so fucking complex. And there's so many moving parts, and it took us really long time to get everything working as we have now.
Okay. Yeah. And so was that process perhaps more complicated than you expected? As complicated as expected?
Yeah, way more complicated than I expected. I think in the beginning, I thought that we could build what we have now in like, half a year, and we're already like 2 years on the road now.
Okay. And that being said, you're going to show us today some of the things you've accomplished in those 2 years. So if you want to start your presentation, we can go for it right now.
Yeah, let me see.
Yeah.
How can I share this?
Yeah, at the bottom, you should have a green button. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's all good. Perfect.
I'll start with a presentation and then drop on to another screen.
Okay.
Yeah.
And as usual for folks in the audience, and we're already getting comments in Dutch that I'm not even going to try to read. No, don't worry. But anyway, as usual, folks, if you have questions or doubts, please feel free to put them in the chat. We'll get to them accordingly.
Are the questions about the colors?
No, no, the colors are cool. Huh. I know, I definitely like the colors. Colors are cool.
Okay, then I'm going really fast through this presentation because I prepared a small demo. I hope it works because I was very busy today, but we'll see. And so let me do a quick introduction into Otomi, because that is how we call our product. And we've been thinking for a long time about what is Otomi. And I think in the Kubernetes space, there's a lot of, how do I say that? There's a lot of activity, a lot of companies, and trying to claim their own like category, because you probably hear a lot of about internal developer platforms or enterprise container platforms, Kubernetes management platforms, and whatever. So we were thinking, hey, what is it that we do? Because it is not like an add-on. We don't manage a Kubernetes cluster infrastructure. We are just trying to make Kubernetes offer it like a complete environment. So we use the Kubernetes as the kernel, and we try to build a kind of, if you compare it to like Linux, like a Linux distribution. So easy install, integrated applications, works out of the box, just install it, log in, and go ahead. Anyway, so we call it a Kubernetes-based operating system. Because you probably all know that Kubernetes is gaining a lot of popularity, and it's already being like the standard for container orchestration. But Kubernetes is still very complex and not developer friendly, and it comes with an overload of add-ons and applications, and that is what we see happening now. So a lot of companies adopting Kubernetes, but Kubernetes alone is just not enough. So they're all trying to build some kind of platform on top of Kubernetes. And I know companies that, it takes them a very long time to build some kind of platform experience on top of Kubernetes. Also, when you think about like a developer onboarding or team onboarding and doing a lot of integrations between different applications. So what we try to do, that's the next stop. And so it makes it, it looks like easy, but it is so freaking complex. And what we try to do is, there's the next slide. I'll skip this one because you probably all know. And so the big problem around Kubernetes is that it's really consuming and expensive to adopt because it takes a lot of time, and it's still very complex to maintain. Not only the Kubernetes infrastructure, that's something we don't do, but everything, your whole application suite on top of Kubernetes, and let alone that it is not really developer friendly. So that is how we came building Otomi. So we started out trying what I think a lot of companies are trying to do, build a platform on top of Kubernetes. But then we thought, that's the whole approach. That's like on the next slide. Is what we're trying to do here is not only offer like a new like user experience, but also do a lot of built-in integrations that work out of the box. So it's like a single installation, and then you can log in and start using all the integrated applications. And what what we're trying to do is to eliminate the toil, because all of those integrations that you need to build and maintain yourself, in the end is going to be like very complex and hard to maintain. And we're also trying to make it very easy to install. So you can install Otomi on any cloud. Currently we support AWS, Azure, and Google Cloud. But you can run it on managed Kubernetes cluster services, but you can also run it on Kubernetes clusters that you deployed yourself, like using kops on AWS. And we're trying to make developers self-serving, so they can do a lot of stuff themselves. Sorry, I need to take a sip.
Not a problem.
As I told you, it was a long day with a lot of people asking.
Yeah, a lot of talking. It's all good.
Questions. So I hope you can see this in the right or in the left for other people. You can see that we're just running on top of Kubernetes, on a managed Kubernetes cluster, for instance, in a cloud. And that is where we deploy Otomi. And Otomi is it's a whole suite of integrated applications. So we have a lot of charts in the back that we use, that we all optimized. And there's a lot of integration done between all of those different applications. Like, for instance, between Keycloak and Istio, and Keycloak, Istio Harbor, for single sign-on between a lot of applications. And what we basically do is that we offer a console. So developers can use the console to create services and access all the applications. And using the console and the API, you can generate configuration values. And those values are then injected into the charts automatically. But when you install Otomi, you will get like a base configuration profile, that we already set up. So you're getting all the applications pre-configured when you install them. And we tried to configure them so we could support like the most common DevOps use cases. So setting up ingress, doing single sign-on, certificate management, image scanning, a lot of other stuff. And we also have a part called Autome Tasks, and the Autome Tasks is, well, they're really like jobs, and they constantly watch the desired configuration, and they change the state of the specific applications. So like, for instance, Harbor. So when I log in as a new user, the platform doesn't know me, and the jobs or the task will make sure that I'm known within those applications. Or when I create a team, the task will make sure that the team will get a project in Harbor. So we're using like, I said here 25, but it's probably more. We really selected the application that we think also together, combined and integrated, are the best choice. And now you might say that it's our opinion. Yeah, of course it is. But we offer a lot of stuff already pre-configured, so ready to use out of the box. But it's not. We're not locking you up. As you can, it stays completely open, so you can add your own applications, or because the core, Autome core, is also open source, so you can also add new applications into the core. And Autome runs natively on Kubernetes. So we're not depending on any specific cloud services. We run everything on Kubernetes. And that makes it also ideal to be like cloud agnostic, because you can deploy something on Autome on Azure and then move it towards AWS, for instance, and you don't need to do any change, because the Autome, the whole suite of integrated applications in Autome is completely cloud agnostic. I think I need to go faster, otherwise we'll don't have a lot.
Yeah. Okay. No, because you'll get to explain all this stuff, directly when you get into the demo.
So this is very short, the console, and I'll show you in a minute. And the console has platform applications. So Autome has predefined. We have predefined multiple roles. So you have a platform admin role, or team admin role, or a team member. And when you log in as a platform admin, you'll have access to the platform application. So when I log in, I can go to like Keycloak, for instance, as an administrator, or I can go to Harbor, and then Harbor knows, hey, you're part of that role, so you'll have the administration options in Harbor. And so we have the platform applications that you can see here, but I'll show you in a second. And we have a lot of platform settings, like you can configure new DNS zones or add additional clusters, so you can switch easily between clusters and clouds. And also already built in security policies. So part of Autome Core is we're using Gatekeeper, and we already have a lot of policies pre-configured that you can just select, turn on or off. And then we have the Teams functionality, and Teams are like, it's not real multi-tenant, I think more soft tenant, so we're not separating teams on physical on nodes, but each team will of course have its own namespace. But when you create a team with Autome, it will not only create a namespace, no, it will also in the back make everything ready for the team to work on the platform. So it will deploy the Istio gateways, or configure the Istio gateways, deploy and create the Istio virtual services. So everything for Istio and Ingress is already automatically created. A team will get access to Harbor. A team will get access to a space in Vault that they can directly access. They will get their own applications for like dashboards, for logging, completely separated. So when I log in as a member of Team A, and I'm not part of, I'm not a member of Team B, I cannot access the Team B. And I cannot access the logs of Team B. I cannot see the whole, I cannot see the team. So we can enable multiple teams to work on the same cluster next to each other without them even noticing. And I forgot the services part, which I will show in a minute. And we also have jobs that you can use to create Kubernetes jobs or cron jobs. And we have secrets. And secrets, what we do is you can create like a pool secret or a generic secret or TLS secret in Vault, and then map that to the Otomi configuration. And then you can use it in services or in jobs. I think I already explained this a little bit about the teams, about the namespaces and Vault and et cetera, so I won't go into that. And now to the more exciting part is Autome Core was already open source, and so was Autome Tasks and Autome Clients. So we have, I think in total, Autome is built about around 5 projects. So it's the core, it's the tasks, it's the client, it's the API and the console. And we're still thinking about also making the console and the API open source, although it's not really exciting. The most exciting part is the Autome Core project. And that was already made open source. So previously we had 2 versions. We had the community edition that was basically these 3 projects, so around Autome Core. And we had an enterprise edition. And in the enterprise edition, we offered the console with the self-service features. And the community edition was, then you needed to write your values yourself. But then we thought, yeah, what we're trying to do is from the more Linux distribution knowledge, is we want to offer a solution. Oh my God.
Don't worry, take your time.
Then we thought, we want to offer an out-of-the-box experience with, if you compare it to the Linux distribution analogy, with a desktop experience and integrated and built-in applications so that you can install it and it runs and you can use it. And of course, like any other Linux distribution, it is free. So we thought, yeah, now we don't have the console as in the free version. Well, that is what we're trying to offer. So that is the promise. So we decided to skip the enterprise edition. So we're going to officially announce it. The plan was this week, but it's going to be like beginning of next week. We're going to announce that Autome is now like completely free. So there's no enterprise edition anymore. Yeah.
Yay. Free stuff. Free stuff is good. Oh, this brings me to an interesting point of cultural debate. Does the word gratis come from Spanish or does it come from Dutch?
Gratis.
It's a big debate.
We've been in Spanish for, I don't know, 60 years, 80 years. Huh?
Yeah.
The Spanish.
Another question. Were the windmills built by the Dutch or were they built by the Spanish?
Oh, I think by the Dutch.
No, that's what I've heard too. But some Spanish people like to.
Because I think then there were no Spanish people anymore in the Netherlands, so it should be the Dutch.
Yeah, I know. But anyway, just a funny side note. Has nothing to, only touching on that. That's it. Cool.
But that was the big announcement. Well,
that's big. That's big, and that's, I think as an organization as well too. did it make you more confident, perhaps interacting with other open source companies and seeing that this was the way to go? Or how did that sort of decision come about?
Yeah, it's when I look back to the last 1.5 years, it's been like a constantly a travel and trying to figure out, because every startup needs to have like a business model, right? And we've been shifting around, trying to find what is like our best business model. And of course, we started out with the enterprise edition and with the self-service features, but we have a roadmap going towards next year, and then we're going to add more additional features that are way more enterprise focused. And so like on the operation part, or on, you need to think about what we're trying to come up with now is more on the automation. Yeah? So we want to come up with some kind of SRE agent, yeah, that is on the platform, and that is aware about the setup, so aware about the profile you're using, but it monitors a lot of different stuff and then comes up with suggestions to say, hey, maybe take Istio, for instance. Istio is not something you can deploy or install and configure and then you're done. No, that's constantly tweaking, monitoring. So we offer an out-of-the-box solution, but if you're going to deploy a lot of services, you need to tune it. And that's not something we can do because we don't know. So we want to offer like features that are aware of what is happening after setup, and then comes up with suggestions to improve your configuration.
All right.
So in the basis, the enterprise edition that we offered now, is not adding real value into that. Yeah. So we decided we would just want to make it completely free, so everybody can use it, because it already has so much advantages.
Yep. I'm really unlocking the potential. I get it. That sounds good.
So let's show.
Let's show it. Let's do it.
How that looks like.
Perfect.
So I told you I was a little busy today, but I found the time to set up 2 clusters. Let's see if they're active. I don't need to log in. I have a cluster set up in, what is it here? You can see it. It's in AWS. It's an EKS cluster. And I've got an AKS cluster. And well, this is when you deploy Otomi. That's a chart install nowadays. We're going to release it, I hope, beginning of next week. So then it's a single chart install with minimal value. So the only dependencies we still have is we require a DNS zone. So you always need to have a DNS zone, but like a COPS always also requires a DNS zone. And we still dependent on an Active Directory. So in this case, I'm using Azure Active Directory for as a identity provider. What we're trying to come up with in a couple of months is that we're going to use Keycloak also as an identity provider. So you don't have like a dependency on an Azure Active Directory, because not everybody has an Active Directory, right? So after installing, and after this, I can show you how that looks like, because it's a single chart install. Takes about half an hour, depending on which applications you selected to install. So in this case, here you can see, because as I told you before we started, I ran out of production certificates, so I'm using staging certificates, but that forbids me, what's the word? That doesn't let me use a lot of applications.
Oh, that's okay.
So
we got a quick question. We got a question though.
Yep.
It feels this is from Benoit, who's a wonderful community member and an SRE. And he asks, it feels to me a bit like Rancher, also open source with, I always get confused, is it SUSE or SUSE or SUSE backing? What differentiates Otomi from Rancher?
Yeah, I think then you need to wait a couple of minutes because
patience, Benoit. Yeah, that's okay.
then I can show it.
Okay, cool.
Because
that's good to frame it so we can see the differences that are there, the contrast.
Okay, what I tried to explain in the beginning is that in the Linux distribution analogy, so simple install and then log in, and then you're ready to go. And in our case, that means that we have a lot of built-in applications. So you can see here a couple of them. So we're using Prometheus, Istio, Knative, Vault, Harbor, Keycloak, and all of those applications are already are prepared for you. So they are already configured. So when you install Otomi, all of these applications are ready to go. So when I click on Grafana, you'll see we already provided a lot of dashboards. This is on the platform level. And they're all done. So you don't need to install Prometheus or Grafana and configure it, or configure it for single sign-on or whatever. This comes out of the box. The same for, well, we use Keycloak, and when you install Otomi, it already creates the roles. It creates, using the values in the chart, of course, the identity provider. So in this case, when I did the chart install, I told Otomi, hey, these are the values to configure my identity provider. And then during the install, not only was Keycloak installed, but it was already configured, so it runs. Because here I logged into on the platform using the Azure Active Directory, configured in Keycloak as an identity provider. Same for Vault. You don't need to install Vault or configure it. That's already done. I hope that already answers the question. Yeah, so in the back, and that is all part of Otomi Core, is where you were heavily depending on Istio and Knative, but you don't need to install Istio. That's already done. And you don't need to configure it. You don't need to do, yeah, of course, as I said, when you're deploying a lot of applications, you need to tweak it a little bit. And I'll show you in a minute how that works. But out of the box, it is already set up for you. So what I've done an hour ago is I created 2 teams, because creating a team can take some time. Well, let me show you and try to explain how the internals work. So when I create a team, so I can, as an admin, I can create a team. Well, why not? Let's not just do it. I'll create a team called DOK. I won't add a group mapping, but when I create a team, I can say, okay, this team wants to receive alerts on Slack, for instance, and then they will only receive alerts for their team. I can add resource quotas for the team, and I can provide them with self-service. So here I can say this team is allowed to configure Ingress. So based on the group mapping, and a user logs in and he's a member of the group that is mapped to this team, he can log in and access the team space. You will see a different console. It has a different color, and you will not see the platform apps. It will only show you the apps on the team level. So when I create a team, each team will get its own applications. So in this case, a team will get a couple of dashboards only for their own resources. So not on the platform level, only on the team level. And I cannot show you because I'm using staging certificates, so this doesn't work. But a team can directly access their own space in a shared Vault instance. And they will have access to Prometheus, so they can see directly the status of the targets. And this is also interesting when, and that's the next step, when I create a service, Otomi already automatically configures black box exporter monitoring on the endpoints. And the same for logging. So already, I don't know what, always a demo. That's why I have 2 clusters, so I can always switch in case of an emergency.
Good, Brian.
Hey, so I'm now
that's exciting. Yeah,
a different cluster and a different team, but it's about the concept. So teams will get access to their own logs, their own dashboards for their own resources. They will have their own Prometheus instance, or have their own alert manager. And when you create the team here, it is in the back doing all of this for you. So it's installing all of these instances, is doing all the Ingress and Istio configuration, configuring the gateways, everything. Just by, and we can try and see how that works, because I was trying to do it. Let's create a team. I don't need to add anything else. I will just say submit, and then you will see here deploy changes lights up. And I will click deploy changes and now pray that it works. And you'll see here it's scheduled for deployment. So it's scheduled for deployment to create the team. And now I'm gonna go to get T, because what happens in the back is that the API created configuration for this team. So you can see here there's we created the team called DOK. So you'll see here a file called Jobs DOK and Services DOK. And when I go back, you'll also see here secrets team. So all the teams have different passwords, and they're all encrypted. So we're using SOPs. So you cannot see the passwords in plain text in the configuration. They're all encrypted. You can use the CLI, but it's a different story, to access the values and decrypt them. But what happens is that the API creates these configuration values. And of course, then it will also do a commit. And the commit will automatically trigger a pipeline. And it's already in a test. Oh, it's already deploying. And this is going to take a couple of minutes, I think, because here you will see what's happening. So the API created the configuration values, and the configuration values are now injected into all of the charts. And the charts are then executed in this pipeline, and this will result in a new state. But all the configuration that we've created is in code in here. Well, there's nothing yet, because if we go to the services DOK, you will see it's empty because we haven't created any service that we can do in a minute. But I can show you an example of another service that already has, or another team that already has a service. And here you will see the code that is created when I created a service called Nginx. And I can show you in a minute where we can try and deploy this one. So this is the code of a service that has been generated by the API. And it says it's the service called Nginx, and the security contacts are added because we're using a lot of policies in the back here. So you need to run as user. And this is the tag and some limits and requests and type public. And then this is sufficient to deploy the Nginx image using Knative, so with auto scaling, and make it public with a public URL. This is going to run for a couple of minutes, I think. And now here you'll see that the team DOK is being created, and hopefully, maybe I need to refresh. The DOK team is now also here available and has its own applications. Well, I think they're not all ready yet because the pipeline is still running and creating all the resources. But in a couple of minutes, when it's done, the team is completely created. And then I'll switch over to my demo team, because here I already created a couple of services. What we can do is create another one called, like a service called Dok. So now I'm creating what we call a service, and a service consists out of two parts. So the first part is the exposure, Ingress configuration, where I can say, okay, I'm going to create a service and I want to make it public. And the only thing I need to do is say make it public, because the configuration already has a DNS zone configured, and it will automatically say, okay, then I'll name this service provided with the host name called dok.team-demo. But I can also say, well, no, just call it hello, for instance. I'm going to do it here. And I can also say I want to do path forwarding, or I can say, hey, put a single sign-on in front of it. And then what happens in the back, it will configure the auth2 proxy. And in this case, so it will configure the whole Ingress, including all the Istio resources. And also, of course, do a DNS registration. So create a DNS record, create a certificate, configure the Ingress gateway. Everything is done automatically. And so that was the exposure part. And now is the service type. And here you can choose 3. So you can say, I just want to expose like an existing Kubernetes service that I already deployed myself. And then you need to make sure that the name of the service is the same as the service that you created. So that's like a regular Kubernetes service. So you did a deployment or created a deployment manifest, probably an HPA and a Kubernetes service. And here you can map that service, that Kubernetes service onto Otomi, and then Otomi will configure everything to make it public. Or you can say, I already have an existing Knative service, or in this case, I want to create a new one. And then we can use Otomi and say, hey, let's deploy this one. And I think tag is stable. Because here you need to be very careful, because you need to run as user. So that means that the image you're deploying here also needs to support to run as a user. In this case, 1001. Or if it is another one, you can change it here. Or say, make a read-only root file system. Before I deploy it, you can see here that the team is already created. So this is done. So the team is created. So now we're going to, we can go into all of the other configuration parts. But as you can see, you can change the limits, the requests. You can add environment variables, secrets that are involved and mapped into the Otomi configuration, or add configuration files. And in this case, I think it's the image uses 8080. So I need to specify the container port of the image I'm deploying here. And then I can say submit and deploy. And you'll see drone is lighting up and it's starting to deploy. Well, I can already show you how that looks like, because I did it before we started to make sure that it worked in this case. And I created a demo service and an Nginx service, and it's exactly the same. So I just said this service is called demo, make it public. This is the image, and run it for me. And on the team level, you can see I've got 3 services created now, and you can also see here the host name of the service. And this is all done automatically, and it runs. So in a few clicks, I can deploy yeah, deploy an image. Well, this is going to take, I think, also a couple of minutes, but we can watch when it's done. Let's move on to some more other stuff. So on the platform level, you can configure the alerts on the platform level. You can add multiple DNS zones and also the provider you're using. In this case, we're running on AWS.
Sorry, one thing really quickly about the alerts, because we had a nice live stream last week with someone who's on the CRE team in Google, and was talking about how one of the problems with alerts is just not, a lack of proper configuration, a lack of paying, really giving them the care that they deserve. How is this approached in Autome?
Oh, as I tried to explain, is that we're when you deploy Otomi, we're delivering you with a base profile, base configuration profile. So in this case, Alert Manager is configured based on the configuration. You can also see here, so I can add a Slack for receiving my alerts, or Microsoft Teams, or email, and of course we also provide a couple of what is it called in Prometheus that generates the alerts? I don't know exactly. But when we deploy, when you deploy Otomi, so you will get a Prometheus, Alert Manager, Grafana, Loki, everything running out of the box. But we're not locking you up. So if you're confident using Prometheus, you can add your own alerting rules. The only issue then is that you need to maintain them yourself, because they're not added into the configuration code. Although, now you're jumping into an interesting topic, because you can see here in the Autome values, we have the chart configuration.
Yeah.
And these are not all the values, because you can imagine it based on all the charts that we're using, that in total we have thousands of values. And these the values of Autome values are all controlled by a schema, and that's also used by the API. That's why I said there'll be the API and the console are not that interesting, because they're completely schema driven. And so the Autome values schema defines the values that can be used, and these are the values that we that you can in Autome are already used to configure all of the integrated applications. But so let's take, for instance, what is a good example? Nginx. You can see here we don't have that much values that are added into the schema. So what you can do is you can, this is just a Git repository, so Git also deployed and configured for you. You can just clone the values, adjust the values, and add your own values for that Nginx into the configuration. You understand?
Yeah. Good. Sorry, my mic was off. Yep.
Sorry.
Sorry, my bad. I don't want to leave you hanging.
But that's a different story, because we also have a CLI. So everything that I've shown you here, that you can also do using the CLI. But then you install Autome, you pull the values, you decrypt them with your with the SOPs, and then you can change the configuration values, completely supported with Visual Studio. So you'll have what it's called auto completion and so, and you can create your own configuration values. And then using the CLI, you can commit them to Git or even run them locally. Well, there's a lot of options. So if you go to Otomi.io, you will see in the docs there's a CLI, and how you can install the CLI and all the CLI command reference. So everything that you can do with Autome, you can also do using the CLI. Oh, in this case, you see that the service I created is ready. Let's see if it is, because it probably takes a couple of minutes because you need to do the DNS registration and the certificate. Ah, it's already running. Yeah, so the DOK service I just created is now running.
Well done. Well done. And a demo on top of it, no pressure.
Yeah, and I was halfway through the settings. So this is also, oh yeah, you asked something about the alerting. Eh? Well, yeah. So the values, which, because beneath the only thing that the console does is it creates values, configuration values for you. And those values are then injected. So all the alerting configuration is injected when installing the alert manager chart. And we also have, well, this is the whole OIDC configuration. Mm-hmm. I can add additional clusters. And that's pretty handy because on this level, you will see I have clusters. So what I did is I added an additional cluster. So I'm now working on the dev EKS cluster in AWS, and I added an additional cluster called demo AKS on Azure. And by adding this as an additional cluster, I can switch directly from my AWS cluster to my Azure cluster. And now I'm on the Azure cluster that doesn't have an additional cluster configuration.
Yeah, but like you said, really provides that flexibility and avoiding that lock-in sensation.
Yeah, so one interface, and here I'm on AWS, and here I'm on Azure, where I can also create teams. And when I create the additional cluster, you can set the context in the console. So I can, I'm now in the context of the AWS dev cluster on the team demo, and I can switch to the Azure demo cluster. Well, it also only has one team, and now I'm in the context of the Azure demo cluster for the team demo. And I can, well, this cluster doesn't have the additional cluster configured, so I cannot switch back. But in this case, we have companies that are using or are running like 6, 7 clusters, and wow. They log into one and switch from one to the other.
Yeah.
And talking about the cloud agnostic, when you create a team, just like we did, and a service, oh, not on this cluster. Wait a minute, because now I'm losing track on where I am.
That's okay.
This is, yeah, this is the one where we created the DOK team. And it has, oh, or did we? No, we created a service in the demo team, I think, here. Yeah, so when we just created the DOK service, this one, I can also copy paste this one, and this is on the EKS cluster, and then move to the AKS on Azure and add that to the configuration and commit it, and then the service will be deployed there. So I can also deploy using the console applications on different clouds, just using the console here. And then we also have a lot of policies. So this is using a gatekeeper in the back, and that's been a real pain in the ass for us because you need to eat your own dog food, right? So all the applications that we run also comply to the policies. And that made it really, really difficult to set up. So here you can enable a lot of policies or change policies. But if you say, well, I don't want to use the policies, then you can, for now, you need to go to the values, into the charts, and say gatekeeper operator, and then just change this to false, and then gatekeeper will be disabled. So there's still a lot of configuration in the values that is not exposed to the console, and that's something we'll constantly do. So there's adding or enabling applications on the console. So there's already an option, a configuration option, so you can say, hey, Harbor is installed now, but just click on it and say, oh, disable it, and then it's gone. And yeah, we also have the secrets that you can create, but then you need to reference towards the secret involved, which I cannot show because I'm using staging certificates.
Oh, I thought you were going to say because it's a secret.
No, you can. So when you create a team, the team will get access to a space specifically for that team in Vault, where they can create and manage their secrets. And when you create a secret in Vault, you can map that secret in Vault to the Otomi configuration. So then you can create a secret, like a generic or a Docker registry or a TLS. And then you need to reference to the Vault, the secret in Vault. And when you create it in Otomi, and you would like to use it like in a service, you can say here, where is it? Or on the English configuration, because here you say, hey, I already have a certificate. So suppose I added a TLS secret to Vault, mapped it to a secret in Otomi, then I could have selected it here and configured it on the Ingress. Well, that's about it. Yeah, I can.
I mean, that's quite a bit.
On and on.
Yeah, no, I'm sure you can go on. I think
it's all about the way that the platform works. So there's a console, and the console uses an API to generate code. That code is then written into Git, as I showed you here, and then committed and injected into the whole bunch of optimized charts we're using. Then you'll get a new state. So it's completely, it's a kind of GitOps way of working, but you don't need to set up any tooling. The only thing you need to do is install Otomi with a single chart, and you get all of this out of the box.
Yeah, and I think from what we see in the comments, like, that's really nice. And it's not often, we've done 82, 83 live streams, and it's not often to see an interface that's so user-friendly, like looks like something that, you could be using Trello or lots of other interfaces that we're commonly used to. And so that sign of comfort that Kubernetes is becoming manageable, I think, is really positive. And one of the things that was kind of being mentioned in the chat, but I also want to bring up here, is that a lot of this stuff has to be kind of based on empathy, and understanding pain points. And you talked about devs, but also SREs. And I kind of want to touch more on SREs. How did you come to the conclusions that you came to in order to create this? Like, did you do surveys with SREs, or, talking to them and seeing like, hey, what are the difficulties that you have when approaching Kubernetes? What would simplify things? How did you go about doing that?
Well, this is all based on our own experience. So a couple of years ago, when I worked as a freelance consultant, I was hired by a company, and I worked like a year trying to build some kind of platform on Kubernetes in AWS in the time. And then, after a year, I think we were not, we didn't even have like 10% we're offering here. So you can imagine that the amount of time you need to spend on building something like this for your own company. So that means that you'll need at least 10 experienced engineers working a whole year to trying to build something like this, if they have the skills that you need to build something like this.
Yeah.
So you can imagine.
And then you have a budget. You're like, oh, not a problem. I can spend all that. Like, go right ahead. Like, it's not a problem.
So there are companies who have money like water, and they don't care.
Yeah.
But they're already spending like $1 million plus on trying to build something. And now we are offering this for free. But it's
gratis. Yeah.
Gratis, yes. but it started out with the idea of now I've built something. I've been working on it for a year, and we needed to hand it over. The team that took over didn't really understand everything. I think it's now like 4 years later, the platform doesn't exist anymore because they didn't have the skills and the people to optimize it and maintain it. Then we thought, what the hell? Why am I spending so much time and everybody's trying to do something like this? That this is just a waste of time. So if we can grab everything we have done for the last couple of years and then lock ourselves up for a long time and come up with this that everybody can use, nobody needs to spend a lot of time. And you probably will hear a lot of people say, but I want to do this and I have special use cases. What I try to show you is that we're just providing you with a base, a profile that you can adjust and optimize for your own situation. But you will have like a working product out of the box. So you can, the install takes like a half an hour because it's containers on cocaine. In the back, there's a lot of containers being deployed. But then you can just log in and start working with it, and optimize and adjust and fine tune your configuration. And it's directly stored in code. So that's why it's like an ideal platform or solution for SREs, because it is built for SREs, because they can see stuff happening, say, hey, we need to adjust this, fine tune the configuration, do it in the code, submit it, and it's done.
And I think it's interesting, built by SREs for SREs, people that have gone through those same problems, who really understand it, and not just someone coming from outside thinking, oh, this might be a nice idea. Having that firsthand experience, I think, is always, worth its weight in gold. And getting a comment here in the chat from our wonderful SRE friend, Benoit. Autome sets this development teams up for success, allowing them to focus on their application. Basically, Autome eliminates toil, and Autome was built on the toil removal philosophy of SRE. So, wow, Benoit's a really nice guy. I think it's a really solid assessment in a very short, very brief way of looking at it, of what it's bringing to the table. So what are the next steps? Gonna let everybody know about this? Gotta let people come in and test it out? What's next for Redcubes as well as Autome?
Yeah, well, we already start thinking about the real enterprise features, but no, the focus for now is just getting this out. And grow our user base, because as I said, we've been living in our bubble with a couple of launching customers, and now we want to just let everybody try this and let us know. So we can learn from that and optimize. But it would be great, of course, if there are other people who understand the whole philosophy behind this, but also the whole code base, because it's really complex. And would be able to contribute, because we're just a team of 12 people now. And so all the help we can get will be very welcome.
I think you're going to get it, because as just seeing the response here from the folks in the chat, like, it's been very, very positive to see the approach and all the different things that you've kept in mind about this has been difficult. How can we put this all in one place? And like you said, really, it's something that gets repeated a lot, but it really is right out of the box. Like, it's, directly, you just jump right in and you're using it with everything organized in the way that it needs to be.
Go ahead. No, go ahead. I want to say one thing, because I don't know how many projects there are now, but I think like 1,200 like open source projects around Kubernetes. And so you can spend like weeks or months trying to select the tools you want to use. But when you do, they need to cooperate. You need to integrate them. So what we did is for the single sign-on, for instance, all the applications that we have integrated are single sign-on. So I can log in as Sander, and all the applications I use know who I am and what I'm allowed to do. And that is like the real difficulty, because all of these projects all have their own philosophy and their own stuff they're using for single sign-on. And there's no standard. So how great would it be that this could be some kind of standard, forcing also all of those projects to comply to a set of standards, so that integrating them and letting them all work together becomes much easier, instead of everybody trying
having to go one by one. Yeah. I can see that. Yeah. And so the amount of time that's spent on that, and then once again, the amount of money and the amount of expertise that companies need in order for, like you said, like, well, if you have a team of 10 super experienced SREs, well, then go, and you have an unlimited budget, go right ahead. But that's simply not the case for, I think, probably just about anybody. And then, like you said as well, too, one thing is creating it, another thing is optimizing and maintaining it, and people change jobs, things like that happen. So that's certainly not ideal for companies. Anyway, very, very informative. We've been talking about doing this for a while, so I'm glad we finally got to do it. Very exciting to see what's going to be happening in the next steps. I have no doubt that people are going to want to get in on this, and very excited that we're hearing about this in the initial phases to see how things are going to progress in the near future. Before we finish,
I just want to say one thing.
Yeah, go for it.
Of course. Thank you for your time. And star.
Yeah. No, that's it. I mean, like, that's really it. The best way to get involved is to get involved. But before we finish, we have a tradition where, as you were speaking, let me know when you can see my screen.
Yeah, I can see it.
Good. So we had our amazing graphic recorder, Angel, who was drawing an artistic depiction of the things that you were talking about. And he's so good that he even got the word gratis in there. And he speaks Spanish is one of his first languages. So he's very well aware of the debate between that. But I think it was a very, very nice presentation. And it's really cool for us to be, like I said, to have access to something like this as it's starting out. Particularly with making this jump to everything being for free, getting lots of folks in there and seeing what the contributions are gonna add in terms of the value proposition of Autome. So thank you very much, Sander. Very nice having you here with us today. Sure, we'll be having you back soon. And everybody, get out there and try this. You couldn't have an easier thing to get a hold of and start using. So looking forward to hear what other people have to say about it, and we'll be in touch, man. So have a good one. Cheers.
Great drawing. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, everybody. Have a good one.
I do have more hair.
Oh, no. Oh, Angel, we may have to touch that up. Okay. It's the lighting. It's all right.